"I am bigger than Peter Obi, but willing to be his running mate," are the words of Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, as recently reported by Nigerian newspapers The Whistler and Leadership. Why is Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso making the headlines once again, with various news outlets reporting on his political influence and perhaps his future political alignment? Now consider the following headlines. Arise News on October 5th, 2024 reports, and I quote, "Barau predicts end of Kwankwasiyya in Kano as NNPP members flock to APC." Quote closed. Also, ex-presidential aide to President Muhammadu Buhari, Bashir Ahmad, was quoted on X and the Daily Trust News as saying, and I quote, "Peter Obi bigger than Kwankwaso politically." Quote closed. Again, another report from New Telegraph quotes, "Doguwa tackles Kwankwaso, says NNPP leader can't speak for enough." Quote closed. But the most controversial of them all is a report by Sahara Reporters with the caption, "Kwankwaso says he agrees to be Peter Obi's deputy if certain conditions are met." While it is not difficult for most politically aware Nigerians to agree that Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso is currently one of Nigeria's most embattled politicians, could these headlines be an indicator that the 2023 presidential candidate of the NNPP and leader of the Kwankwasiyya movement is about to switch his political alignment? And how will this news be received by the millions of Kwankwaso's followers, predominantly spread across the ancient city of Kano? But before you double down on Kwankwaso's statement, you must remember that the decision involving political party mergers for a leader that already commands an almost cult-like loyalty from his followers is one with several twists and turns. Little wonder, Kwankwaso has carefully chosen his words, backed by the strong conditional clause, "if certain conditions are met." Welcome to Politics and Powerplay. If this is your first time on this channel, make sure to hit on the subscribe and notification button for robust and unbiased political commentary. Now let's dive in. The Nigerian political landscape is fluid, with alliances and power dynamics shifting frequently. A recent series of statements and actions from notable political figures has reignited conversations about former Kano State Governor and former Senator representing Kano Central, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, with predictions of his possible role in Nigeria's political future. Despite the various speculations, it seems unlikely that Kwankwaso would accept a vice presidential role in any political coalition or government. This stance can be understood by examining both his political stature and recent developments within his party and the broader Nigerian political arena. Kwankwaso, who has built a reputation as a formidable leader with considerable clout, especially in northern Nigeria, not only founded the NNPP, but also the Kwankwasiyya movement, a strong grassroots base that commands loyalty from a significant segment of the population. Wielding such power already suggests he would be reluctant to take a secondary position. His recent comment, "I am bigger than Peter Obi," reflects his sense of seniority and political status, emphasizing that he sees himself as a leader rather than a deputy. Kwankwaso's established grassroots base provides him with a sense of security and influence, which would be compromised by accepting a vice presidential role under Obi, whose grassroots popularity is still budding compared to Kwankwaso's long-standing political presence. But there are also evidences of fractures within the NNPP that point to a lack of cohesive support for Kwankwaso. Recently, the NNPP publicly distanced itself from a letter purportedly authored by Kwankwaso instructing NNPP legislators to criticize President Bola Tinubu. On the surface, this incident reveals a rift within the party that could indicate Kwankwaso's waning influence. However, it also highlights his willingness to directly challenge high-ranking political figures, underscoring his reluctance to play a subservient role. If he were willing to subordinate his ambitions, such challenges would be uncharacteristic of his leadership style. Similarly, within his own New Nigeria People's Party (NNPP), there are emerging factions that question his leadership style. Notably, NNPP stalwart Abdulmumuni Jibril Doguwa, who has predicted that Kwankwaso will be retired from politics in 2027. Such internal dissent again highlights Kwankwaso's potentially weakening grip within his own party, which at first might seem to suggest that he could compromise for a vice presidential slot. Yet, this division is precisely what could push Kwankwaso to double down on his quest for the presidency. Rather than concede to a lower position, he may choose to reinforce his leadership or even explore alternative alliances, asserting his role as a principal candidate rather than the second in command. If Kwankwaso were open to playing second fiddle, his actions would likely demonstrate more willingness to align with prevailing party dynamics within the NNPP. But instead, he has continued to assert his leadership position, reinforcing his preference to remain at the forefront. Adding to the complexity is Kwankwaso's rivalry with political figures such as Jibrin Barau, the Deputy Senate President under the Tinubu administration, who has openly criticized the Kwankwasiyya movement and predicted its demise, backing his prediction with photo record of constantly defecting NNPC members joining the APC. While this appears like another indicator that Kwankwaso might be losing traction, rather than indicating a readiness to accept a vice presidential role, this rivalry may further propel his desire to reaffirm his standing in Nigerian politics, especially as one who has demonstrated a history of rebounding from political opposition by reshaping his alliances and reinforcing his influence. This trend suggests that instead of conceding to a secondary role, Kwankwaso is more likely to pursue avenues that maintain his primary status, aligning with forces that respect his leadership. In conclusion, while Kwankwaso's recent remarks and party challenges might suggest a need for compromise, his actions and history of resilience reveal a leader who is likely to settle for a vice presidential candidacy. His considerable influence, intra-party confrontations, and ongoing rivalries all point towards a politician who values his autonomy and leadership status too much to accept a role that would place him as a secondary figure. For Kwankwaso, the road to 2027 will likely involve reinforcing his position and seeking alliances that allow him to retain his leadership rather than diminish his authority by accepting a vice presidential role. But don't forget, the Nigerian political landscape is highly fluid and unpredictable. Thanks for watching, and make sure you watch this video to gain more insight about Kwankwaso's future political battles.